we go. The trivium in terms of the 7 liberal arts and sciences. So the first 3, does everybody know what the trivium is? And if not, then that's a research opportunity for you. The next is what's the quadrivium, which is the other 4, right? So in terms of the trivium, you've got grammar, rhetoric, and then messing up ritual and lodge. No, that's not the 3. That's not the 3. The 3, of course, are grammar, rhetoric, and logic. The quadrivium are the remainders, right? The rest of the 7 liberal arts and sciences. So with that, here's your opportunity for something to read. Read anything, and you will benefit from the lesson of grammar. The lesson of grammar is definitely something that comes across to you. Brother Jones has some really good examples of that tonight, that we'll talk about. A great example that I was reading about is why we say what we say. And that's another great example of grammar. For instance, Saint John. Why is it plural? Why isn't it, Saint John's or plural there? Or better yet, district deputy grand master, right? So why isn't it district's deputy grand master plural? Or better yet, why don't we say the Grand Lodges of Louisiana? Why don't we say it that way? Why don't we say the Grand Lodges of Louisiana Free and Accepted Masons? Because it's plural on the end too. So anyway, something to research there, something to read. And then of course, ritual is a great opportunity for you too, to go back in and read those words and understand that they didn't just fall on the paper, that somebody really took time to make sure those words mean what they mean, and to try and derive maybe even some hidden meanings of what they say. A great example in grammar is that what they call the super secret capitalization, right, trick, where you capitalize something to say, hey, draw attention to me. You can see that in some of Shakespeare's work. Free online resources. I say we, it's a party of one, but hey, I'm having fun. The bit.ly link to the Warden's Retreat is always the first link for the free online resources. The second one is triviumeducation.com. It is a free resource to you, triviumeducation.com, and I will show that to you as well. Let me show you that real quick. Triviumeducation.com looks like this. Okay, can everybody see that on my screen? Excellent. So the cool thing is you go to the study materials, some of the notes that they have and materials that they have for you are downloadable, which is awesome, and they're free downloadable. Like, for instance, Principles of General Grammar Adapted to the Capacity of Youth, and proper to serve as an introduction to the study of languages, which of course is the longest book title I've seen in quite some time. So triviumeducation.com does the first 3, of course. And of course, they also have several different downloadable online files for you. And then you can actually see if you can pass the 8th grade in 1895, right? Some of you, probably not. Probably not. Love you. Love your brothers. Probably not.
Nope.
No comment on that one, right? And then let's see here. So that's the free online resources to you. And then something to learn about, that's grammar in itself. And I turn the tide over to Brother Kevin Jones. Let me select you here, Kevin, and highlight you.
And I've got let me see how can I show my little PowerPoint on here?
Hold on.
Share my screen? Hang on a second,
I can make stuff happen, bro. I can do it.
No dick pics, it'd be too small.
Wah. Try that.
That's what she said.
All right.
See if you can share it there. Does it allow you? Boom! Look at that. It's math and sciences.
Awesome.
Is this a great country or what?
Well, that's it. Well, we'll talk about that at another meeting, Brother Jones.
All right. So
great institution so far, yes.
All right. So everybody sees the all right, good. So this is I'm gonna give you the same spiel I give my Joppa Lodge brothers whenever I do this. This can last as short or as long as you want to. So it's a lot of discussion stuff, and I'm one of these teachers I'm a teacher, but I'm one of these teachers who doesn't really give answers. I ask questions, so it might piss you off or it might be wonderful. So however you want, That's how we're gonna do this. All
It
right.
makes people think. Do it.
That's the idea. So right, y'all see my quote up there. I love starting off lessons with a nice appropriate quote. So there's nothing which can better deserve our patronage than the promotion of science and literature. Right, that sounds like the quadrivium and the trivium to us. Knowledge in every country, the surest basis of public happiness. Obviously, our esteemed brother George Washington. All right, so we're not gonna. This doesn't have to be answered right now. This is something to think about while we are going over this. How important is it that we live our daily lives as Masons? And let me clarify what I'm looking for on that. Is should it be not obvious because you don't always walk around with the giant hat, or I mean, some of you might, but you don't necessarily have to walk around with a big old sign on your shoulder every day. Hi, my name is so and so. I'm a Freemason. But let's say you don't, and just let's just say, how important is it in your own opinion? Now, those opinions, and we're going to come back to this later, so I'm not asking now. Just something to think about during the lesson, that you are a Mason, not just here, let's say not just here in the meeting, or not just at your building or your lodge or at the convention or at the civic center, but just that you act as a Mason. You're in your whole existence from sun up to sundown. So that's just something to think about, and we'll get to that later. Hopefully everybody got clarified on that, what I'm looking for that question. All right, so let's talk about the and this is why I thought of this topic, because last week we really got into math, right? And so I went to the other side of the not the other side of the staircase, but kind of the other side of the 7 liberal arts and sciences. So in the fellowcraft degree, the candidate is symbolically led up a winding stair that consists of 3, 5, and 7 steps. All right, so we're going to focus on that one right there, grammar. So in doing so, he's introduced the seven liberal arts and sciences. All right, now this is I know everyone's favorite subject is grammar. Good, that's mine too. So we're going to. Sorry, I gotta look at my notes here. I'm gonna leave something out. All right. So
some of us like arithmetic. It's okay.
Okay, well, I like it all. I'm a lifelong learner. So we bring, how do we bring meaning into our lives from these 7 liberal arts and sciences? And that's kind of getting back to my original question is, how do we feel like these 7 liberal arts and sciences are going to bring meaning to our lives, and what are we supposed to get from them as Masons? What are we supposed to get from this, and not without giving me the spiel obviously here, but what do you think we're supposed to get from these? That's open forum right there for anybody. Are we supposed to? What do we think we're supposed to achieve from this? Because honestly, it's the part of the ritual, but there's not a whole lot of explanation of this part of the degree as far as what meaning these subjects for the candidate.
I'll play into it. I think
Right.
every one of these things that we see before us deals into a part of the human existence, and that deals into something that gives us meaning when it comes to what we do on a daily basis. When it comes to every day through our walk in life, in terms of what we do and what we look for. We're always looking for something. People that seek knowledge always look for something. And everyone in history has always looked for knowledge through one of these things. You can debate that there's others, but when it comes to Freemasonry, I honestly believe that a lot of these things come back to what are actual aspects of knowledge and science. And these are things that we seek to understand to help us on our journey to understand how to be better people, better men, and better religious people to do better for the world around us.
That's excellent. That's really getting back to my first question about how do you feel like we should, live our daily lives, so I'm with you on that.
Well, Kevin, you were saying in order to apply, and how does this work in? When I was working with kids with autism, right? We were taught that if you think specifically, then you speak specifically, so you act specifically. So when you're picking out words to describe behaviors or actions, or the antecedents to behavior or psychology, or even just normal notes on what you're doing in terms of the sciences, and especially behavioral sciences, what word you pick out definitely matters, in terms of describing things and how words work, and how descriptions of actions and behaviors work.
And I also like how I think it's very, it makes sense that the first one is going to be grammar, because that seems like a good foundation. And obviously I'm still for the Greeks here. Let me move on to that. So let's talk about the 7 liberal arts and sciences for a second, a little background on that. So we're talking about a curriculum known to ancient Greece and to Rome, and even as far as, Middle Ages and medieval Europe, they practiced their education this way. Greeks came to see learning as being composed of 7 arts. We had grammar, logic, rhetoric, geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy. And we got into a few of those last week on the back end there, especially arithmetic and music, I thought. We had Aristotle contended that a free man should not seek practical skills, but should strive for moral and intellectual excellence, the goal being theoretical and philosophical knowledge.
All right, Kevin, I want to weigh in on that one.
Go for
it. So when it talks about freedom, does freedom appear to you as a pack of animals under one whip? No, that's not freedom or consensus. That's literally the opposite of freedom, right? Just because it's under one particular controller or tyrant or tyranny doesn't make it free. The second concept in terms of what a free man is, the second concept in terms of bettering themselves or strive for more intellectual excellence. Let's talk about that for a second. If mankind has been consistently making machines better, right? We can all agree on that. We're on some of them right now. But in order to make men better, you receive the fruits of that labor 1,000-fold when you can increase the throughput, the benefit is exponentially increased when you can improve the man, not the machine. So Aristotle had a couple of great points there in terms of what free men should be looking for, and when you make the man better, the man makes everything he makes better, right?
Right.
If I may, the construct under what Aristotle was doing these mental computations was vastly different from what we acknowledge today. Just a thought. I mean, I understand the premise for sure, but the actual machine that you're talking about in terms of the construct, vastly different thought process. Machine back in the day, when you talk about wheel, spoke, trowel, maybe a few other implements that I won't mention here, machines were very different back then, right? So works were done through.
But to be grammatical about this, the definition of a machine hasn't changed. It's just to help man do labor, right?
But that's fair. The same, but are they not the same tools that help us do labor within the construct we're talking about?
I think it extends throughout time.
Okay.
I saw somebody raise their hand. Did you see that? Did it show up in mine and everybody else's? Austin Oliver raised his hand.
Troy, you got a point for that machine.
Brother Austin is a Texas Mason, but we still love him all the same, even though he doesn't have the work correctly. He's also joining us. Let me see if I can see him here. I've got you unmuted, brother. Well, I don't here. You can go ahead and weigh in, Brother Oliver.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to say that, as Masons from the very beginning, when you're made an EA, you're taught to constantly seek out knowledge. Test everything for yourself and apply it to your life to make yourself better so that you treat others better. And I think that has a lot to do with why, knowledge and grammar and all these different sciences and everything are put into the fellowcraft degree, because that the quest for knowledge is at the very heart of Masonic teachings. It without seeking out knowledge and trying to learn things for yourself, you're never going to become a better man. There's no reason to join an organization that is attempting to make you better without trying to learn something and learn how to apply it to your life.
I totally agree, Brother Oliver. The maxim that we say is to learn how to learn, right? If you learn how to learn first, then you learn what to learn, and then you learn it, right? As opposed to the practical skills that we're talking about from Aristotle here.
So hence you don't know what you don't know.
Kevin and Troy, this is Heath. I think so you're talking about, if you look at the third bullet or the fourth bullet on this slide, it says the curriculum was adopted by the Romans and divided into two parts called the trivium and the quadrium. So I think it's important to realize or to understand why it was divided into two separate parts, and to see if that can be applied into our understanding of the learning through the degrees.
Hit us with it, Keith. Heath, come on.
I'm just here, and that's my observation. I was hoping Kevin could weigh in.
Well, as far as the reasoning, I mean, so the trivium, we're talking about the rhetoric, logic, and grammar, and that's essentially your ability to master the language. You're speaking, you're writing, the art of that. And then later you're talking about, math. You're talking about something to do with math. Music is math and time, and math and space, and arithmetic is math on a line. And so when it's really easy to divide them into one. And that's why I go back to my quote with George Washington. Let me back away up here. Science and literature, right? So for a long time, way back before, Common Core and all this other stuff, we've divided our education into two different groups of kind of categories. Now, for a long time, this was called a classical education, and up until the 1950s, it's actually inductive. I'm not going to get all the difference, but anyway, up until the 50s or 60s or so, this was considered a good degree to have. Now, unless you're going to be a college professor, it's really not worth the paper it's printed on. But this is a degree in the classics. No offense to anybody. I've got a liberal arts degree, so I can do that. Anyway, this is kind of what it's based on, that you're well-rounded. You can speak, you can elocute, as they say, you can write, you can think. You can problem solve. You can do a lot of stuff. I don't know if I answered your question or if I just went on about something. I do that.
Well, Kevin, I also think that the two splits there could also be
I would also say it's not the president's decision to make. That's the thing. The virus is the boss, not the president, not the governors, who are the ones who make these decisions. You have to.
Yeah, we can hear you, brother. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I'm hearing something else too.
Someone's got a background going on, by the way, just if someone can hear it.
So I think the two splits could also be more of things that we learn on that deal more with Earth.
JP Morgan predicting 20% unemployment.
Hey, does anyone have something going on in the background? They can
hold
hear,
on. Hey,
hear what
Kyle?
brother has to say, but there's a lot of background.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm CC Taylor. I've been listening to you. I guess I got in the wrong phone here, but I couldn't talk a while ago. saw something that said fine, I could speak, and I spoke. Is that Keith of WH Booth Lodge with you? Hello?
I don't.
I can hear you.
Keith, this is Charlie Taylor, Charles's father. Keith? Hello?
Brother, this is Troy Jones. That's Heath. Heath. I misspoke earlier. That's Heath Harvey.
Oh, don't think I know Heath, but I'm past master of the WH Booth Lodge. I'm their chaplain this year. But of course, we're not having meetings because of this virus. And I don't know what I tapped into. I was waiting for a Fair Park reunion meeting. It was supposed to be tomorrow night, and that's why I was confused how I got into it. But
this is
y'all
not that, but welcome anyway.
It's what now?
I said, this is not that, but welcome anyway.
Well, I can't see you long as I'm speaking. I can't see you any longer. It's whatever. But I guess you've been over at WH Booth Lodge.
I have visited, yes.
Well, maybe we'll have to get together and see it in person here. But I don't know how I got into this, or what lodge y'all a member of, or whatever.
I'll be happy to see you as soon as it's legal.
I can't hear you.
I said I'll be happy to see you as soon as it's legal.
That's right, at Booth Lodge. That'd be fine. Or maybe somewhere else. I'll have to tell my son about that. I got into this instead of Fair Park having their meeting, which is tomorrow night, hopefully. I've been trying to get on it for several weeks with class of 69.
I see.
But I'm past master of Booth Lodge. I've been in all the York Rite bodies. The Scottish Rite, I was active in Scottish Rite. I'm active in the Shrine. So I was interested in what was going on.
Were you in the York Rite, my brother?
I am a past commander of the York
Rite. I'm not going
Rite.
to hold that against you, though. It's okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm. As soon as this is all over, I plan on getting more involved with it so I can get my son in York Rite. He went to Scottish Rite a few weeks ago, but everything else is shut down.
That's correct. Brothers, there's about 15 other guys on the call. We're going to continue with the education. Thanks for joining
Go ahead.
us tonight, brother.
All right.
A couple of hands up. Do you see that, Troy?
Do.
I guess me.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Okay. So, like I was saying, I think it's split into two because grammar, logic, and rhetoric, I feel, have more to do with they're more earthly, and geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy would be more of the heavenly arts and sciences. That's just kind of my shoot from the hip reaction when I saw it split. I don't know if anybody has anything to add to that.
Sure, Brother Caskey.
I just wanted to comment on the third bullet point there. I guess when I read it, and maybe hopefully I'm not repeating somebody else's comment. I'm trying to listen here, of course, about a freeman should not seek practical skills, but should strive for moral and intellectual excellence. I'm a continuous improvement manager, and I know that when I'm at my workplace, we have certain goals, certain things that we're looking for. We're trying to chase a perfect state, and I can see that me trying to teach somebody just a regular tool on how to improve this workplace, this one thing, that's fine. But I'm wanting you to expand your mind, say, you can take that same idea and keep going. There's no end. I mean, I'm a continuous improvement manager. There's always something better. There's always something more. So even with, when I'm studying grammar, logic, rhetoric, etc., you don't learn it all. there's more. And so I don't know. That was my interpretation. I'm just through my lens, I guess, is continuous improvement. I just want to share that.
Yeah, and I don't think I don't read that as he's saying that somebody should know how to fix their air conditioner or any of that kind of stuff. I think it's more like that shouldn't be your goal, is to your goal should be this strive for intellectual moral excellence. And, it should just be like, well, I can eat and grow plants and grow food and slaughter a cow, so I'm good. That's kind of how I take that as.
We still have Brother Oliver. Your hand's still up. Brother Caskey, if you put your hand down for me. Thank you. Brother Oliver, go ahead.
I don't have a question, y'all. I just don't know how to put my hand down.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I'll just consider it down. Does anybody else have anything to comment? I see another hand up.
Yeah, I'll just join in on this one. We are talking about the logics and the liberal arts and the seven liberal arts and sciences, right? Logic, rhetoric, grammar, astronomy, geometry, arithmetic, music. If we talk about all of them individually, we can pick them apart. We sure can, right? But if you put them all in a construct to where they encompass the things we're talking about, that I think is what we're trying to say, right? They all add something to the whole. So obviously we can look at the whole because all of them contribute to what we're talking about. So perhaps, I guess maybe Brother Kevin's trying to say in the construct of talking about certain things, these are the things that maybe we talk about tonight, but obviously all of them bring something to the table. It's just what we're talking about that brings everything into equilibrium.
I like the way you think. I do think that them being divided, the way they're divided is important. I concur with some other brother statements on that too. Brother Jones, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, right. So we got and he mentioned the trivium and the quadrivium earlier. We had some good insight on that. So this is another quote. I like quotes. So, Franciscus, he was a 15th century writer and humanist who was actually subject to the Inquisition at some point. So I won't give you all of his history, but all the cactus in the house say, hey. God created man, the participant of reason, and as he willed him to be a social being, he bestowed upon him the gift of language, in the perfecting of which there are three aids. Well, obviously he was not a brother, but he's also, like the Romans and Greeks before him, is in the same thinking that this idea of this gift of language, I wonder which three aids he's talking about. Well, spoiler alert, it's, grammar, rhetoric, and right. So grammar. All right. So who remembers their 8th grade? Let's give a little 8th grade grammar lesson real quick. No, y'all want to do that? No? Oh.
Go ahead. Diagram.
That's not what we're going to do. I'm just playing. Okay. So this is what we all think of when we think of grammar, right? As far as our K through 12 grammar. Okay. We're not going to do that. So let's talk about what, as brethren, what we think of grammar, not what the profane, as they say, would think of grammar. Let's talk about, it's better defined as the art of writing and, I'm sorry, this keeps getting in my way. Skillful speaking. All right, that's how we're going to describe grammar. The art of writing and skillful speaking. All right, it's also skill in knowing language. All right, knowing how to use language. Even Moses needed somebody to help him enunciate and clearly communicate what he needed to say to his followers, right? So let's talk about why grammar is important. And while you read those, I've got a little side note I want to read while y'all are taking a look at our modern day grammar faux pas. So sometimes there's a misconception that language is only when it's been written, like spoken language. But grammatical structures are things we just learn. We know certain concepts are common in all languages. Names, adjectives, action, verbs. But let's talk about communication and our thought processes. So when we're talking about grammar today, we're talking about communication. It's a real key component of our social lives. And there's just about no job description that's going to be mentioned without good communication skills as a requirement. So good, clear communications based on a firm grasp of language rules, i.e. grammar, using an adequate vocabulary, finding the right words to use, having clear-cut thoughts that are worth communicating. So not just figuring out your thoughts and make sure they're worth communicating, but also how to put them out there in the world to make sure there's a sentence, So we're using language as like an instrument for communicating, but also as a tool of our thinking, how we think. And it's symbolic to us because it's, there's like a magic attributed to the word. So we hold in veneration, as he said, both St. John's or the Saints John, however correctly want to say it, the Baptist and the Evangelist. And obviously one of them, St. John the Evangelist, had some very fascinating verses to put on paper. So I would contend, and obviously I don't think anybody would argue with me here, that learning your words and grammar is going to make you a better Mason and help you to kind of, I want to say, live the Masonic life, because that sounds like a religion, because that's not, but it's definitely going to help you in your path, your own introspective journey in that. So I found a few, there's a bunch of them, but make sure when you hunt pedestrians, you use the right trails. This is a pretty popular one, we're all out of meat. Well, yeah.
Now, to correct you, Brother Jones, that's just a misspelling, right? So there's a big difference between not having the right spelling and using the sorry we closed. That's incorrect grammar.
We out of meat. Well, spelling mistakes are right. So it's not just a misspelling is not necessarily a grammar mistake. Right. That's correct. So sorry, we closed, we out of meat, sorry, we are closed, we are out of meat. But yeah, this is the funny part, but yeah, the whole thing is a giant mess. Here we are, obviously, employees only. Well, the employees only what? All right, we got some hands up. We might want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, Brother Caskey, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say there was one that just kind of come to me because of the simplicity of today. I've heard of, surely I say unto you today, you will be with me in paradise. Or surely I say unto you, today you will be with me in paradise. So it's depending on where the comma's at, where is he with him today? Or is it with, I'm saying you today? That's something I've heard.
All right, so here's one for you, especially for the Scottish Rite guys, but not especially for the Scottish Rite guys. We just recently had the Tenebrae service on Thursday. If you were able to attend one, here's one for you. Take, eat, and give to the hungry. Take, drink, and give to the thirsty. So a great example of that is take, drink, and give to the thirsty. Or does it mean take, drink, and give to the thirsty? Great example of a grammatical difference.
Agreed. And there's a few, we were doing our reunion. Obviously, I'm not going to say any of them, but I think you can tell when somebody, or even when we're in conferring degrees, and somebody says something and it means totally different when they put those pauses in there. And it's like it takes on a totally different meaning when somebody's enunciating and putting those pauses in there where they belong, and not just going because it just doesn't, it almost means something completely different because you're not sure where the commas are and where the periods are.
We're talking about punctuation, right? I mean, not part
Right.
of grammar.
Well, punctuation is very much a grammar. In fact, and he was talking about misspelling. So a misspelling isn't necessarily, but when you know, there and there and there and where, you know, those that now you've taken a spelling mistake to a grammar, you know, issue, you know.
I can say right now that a punctuation mistake plays into a lot more of the sciences than you realize outside of the conversation. We talk about astronomy, we talk about geometry, arithmetic. It's not just, I mean, obviously punctuation, arithmetic, but it plays more into the things we're talking about. So it is a conceptual thing that brings it still together. So when you talk about it in one construct, it can still translate to everything else for sure, because it's still very relevant. Very relevant.
Hey, on that note, we have Brother Ron Schmidt here. Brother Ron Schmidt, I wanted you to weigh in on punctuation and intent of meaning and grammatical errors in the Handbook of Masonic Law, if you would.
Sure. It's very important to make sure that we have the punctuations in the right place in the Handbook of Masonic Law. As many of you know, we were involved in some court cases the last couple of years. The judge read it one way. Matter of fact, we had one judge that diagrammed this whole sentence on us. Of course, she did it wrong. But it can cost us a lot of problems, causes a lot of problems in the way the Handbook of Masonic Law is interpreted if it's not punctuated correctly.
Thank you, Brother Einschmidt. All right, so let's, assuming there's no more hands raised, let's get back to our questions of the day. I'm sorry, so one more quote. I like my quotes. All right, to be able to instruct, to learn deference, to be able to speak with authority, the enlightened human must concern himself, oh, that's neat, with the very basic study of communication. That's translated because that's Socrates and he would have been speaking ancient Greek. So, in other words, not only to be able to learn, but also be able to teach, to instruct, and to be able to teach with authority. To have that authority as a teacher, you have to be able to have that basic effective communication ability. And that's why I think it's very logical and, you know, to turn a phrase there, that the first step in the steps is grammar, because I think that's an excellent foundation as not only a learner, but as a teacher to build upon there with the 7 liberal arts and sciences.
Brother Jones, did you improperly punctuate that last quote on purpose?
Probably not on purpose, but I probably did it. Where am I at? Did I not? I didn't put a period on there. Okay, that's my fault. No, I didn't do it on purpose. That's not even, I'm not even gonna lie. All right, so grammar is only one of 7 parts, though. Getting back to our, taking it on the whole, all parts together, and I put the little key there. We all know why I put the key there. We're not going to get into that, but all the parts together symbolize for the Mason idealization of education, right? And together symbolize this conscious effort to control the mind and spirit so that reason prevails.
Should prevail.
Sorry, what?
Should prevail.
Ideally. So yeah. Anyway, like I said, it's the one of the 7. It's part of a whole, and we all know why. And obviously we're not in a tile lodge here, so I'm not going to quote anything here about why, what grammar is used for. But like I said, it's so go back to our question of the day. So before we get into that, so how important is grammar? And that should have been capitalized. That's a mistake. How important? I swear I fixed that. You know what it was? I fixed it on my computer. I saw it after I sent it, put it on the drive. Anyway, here we go. That's bugging me. I literally do this in my class when I'm giving class. I'll just stop right there and
Shouldn't grammar be capitalized as a subject?
that can be. Sure, why not? Anything else?
No, I think that's good.
All right, so how this should have flown in. This should have flown in as animation, so I screwed that up too. Let's ignore the second question. Let's focus on the first question. So how, and I don't mean like how important. So so how important is that? Mean, I'm not trying to say do you think you're not a good Mason if you're using your pronouns incorrectly or saying I seen it or something like that. That's not really what I'm getting at. Let's get a little deeper than that. So how as Masons, how important is grammar? Let's open that up to the floor, in our Masonic journey. I think there's a part where Daffy Duck just jumped down the stage and heard the crickets.
I see Sean's hands up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sean.
Sean, turn your mic on, my friend.
There we go. Sorry. I'm doing this on an iPad. I'm not doing it on my PC. Anyway, to me, this goes back to why there's a break between the trivium and the quadrivium. Grammar provides structure for us to think in. As Masons, we have to have a foundation to build upon. And so the grammar, rhetoric, and logic provide us structure to build our thoughts, to put them in a coherent fashion, and be able to communicate them to other people so that we can do the rest of those things, our music, our art, astronomy, and geometry. All of those things build upon that foundation. If we can't have structure and logic and communication, we can't go further. So that's our groundwork for everything else to build on.
Communication.
It's our superstructure.
Go ahead, Stuart.
I was just saying communication. That's a key word for me, I think, when you talk about these things. That's all.
Yeah, so communicating ideas properly, right? And to convey the symbols, the inventing and combining symbols together. That's what letters are, really, is combining the symbols in a way that other people understand the intent from the combiner. That's the whole point of the matter, really, and especially in the ritual, right? We're taught to memorize before we're taught to understand.
Can I ask an important question, Troy?
Nope. Just kidding. Go ahead.
I don't blame you. That'd tell me to shut up too. This is a very important question, I think, when it comes to what we're talking about and the different things we're talking about. What is the difference between rhetoric and grammar? Can we have a fundamental discussion about the difference between rhetoric and grammar?
Yeah, hit it.
You want it? Okay. So rhetoric, rhetoric. Grammar, we're talking about not just part. So we're talking about art of writing, to be able to study the written language, and it's connected with skillful speaking. Now, rhetoric, we're talking about using language to kind of impress the desired wishes on the learner or the listener or the reader. So the difference is, can I effectively say correctly what I want to say? And the next step is, can I actually communicate that to the person effectively, I guess, is what I'm going at.
Yeah, my wife just weighed in from the other room here. She's kind of listening in on some of these. She said there's the difference between spoken and written, right? So spoken would be the rhetoric, and grammar would be the written. The way I've heard it put pretty aptly is that
Slander and libel.
slander and libel, right? Two great examples.
That's what I was going for. Yes, sir.
It's not totally black and white though. With that though, it's
Agree. Agree.
In terms of grammar, it's the nuts and bolts of which you build the phrases of the machinery that you're speaking, right? Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
The art of argumentation, right? Knowing who your audience is, how to best address them, persuade them, all those fun things. That's the rhetoric.
That's the next
That's
step.
also,
of rhetoric,
no,
right?
I would vehemently disagree and say that's logic. The method of conveyance might be rhetoric and grammar in terms of how you do it. And the reason I brought up slander and libel was simply for the two differences of art, written communication versus verbal communication. Now, again, obviously these are all connected. We're talking about ideals that we embrace, but we actually are trying to embrace and talk about the importance of one versus the other. I think, Brother Kevin, you're right. Method of conveyance is a very big part to what we're doing, for sure. But again, they're all tied together, and I already said that earlier. But when I specifically mentioned rhetoric and grammar, I was more thinking of versus slander, libel, written versus print, right?
Yeah.
So
here's a great example. Yeah.
So I would say, and this is just for my research I've done today, and this is obviously the way, it's just me weighing in on this. Grammar, you're talking about the correctly putting together your thoughts, and then rhetoric is that actually effectively communicating them to somebody else and having them absorb. And logic is really that higher thinking, like, can you effectively carry on that conversation, I guess, to continue that. It's kind of more philosophy based, I guess, is where I'm kind of without having the whole thing right in front of me. So let me see. Well, let me read this. I do have one. Oh,
Chad, you got your hand raised, bud.
Can you hear me?
A little bit. Go ahead.
A little bit. Go ahead.
we can hear you.
Let's see. Let's see if I can change on my music any better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So I think everybody's dancing around kind of a point that is, to me, easy to see. It's a staircase. Every step's connected.
Sure.
So you start with grammar, which is where you have language of some sort, followed by rhetoric, where you have storytelling or using the language, followed by logic, where now you can argue whether or not the story is correct. You can prove things through logic. That's your first three sections, followed by arithmetic, which in the Roman world was conveyed by letters. So you're still connected. You've connected the language to now arithmetic. Once we had arithmetic as humans, we wanted to measure things. There's geometry. Once we got done measuring things, we were at refreshment. We wanted music. You need math and arithmetic to make music because those are notes, followed by wanting to know God. So then we're looking at the stars for astronomy. But it's a to me anyway, looking at it, it's a staircase, and it's intentionally done that way because it's connected. Starting from grammar through astronomy. It's a path.
Brother Sean, you had your microphone unmuted. Did you have something to weigh in on that?
Didn't go back to mute.
Okay. Brother Jones, I retook that over just to be able to show the Trivium infographic, if you will.
that's I only had the one last question. I was going to revisit our original question of the day. And that is, what is the, live your life, your daily life, as a without making it a religion or an ethos. So, for example, and I'm just gonna get my personal. I'm gonna be personal here for a second. If I was out about and just so happened to say somebody, notice something license plate, whoa, you're a Mason, blah blah, yeah, okay. And then they're like, wow, that guy's an asshole. I can't believe they let him be a Mason. They must let anybody be a Mason. Well, I wouldn't want to convey that, because I would want somebody to say, okay, well, that's no wonder, that's what they're all like. They're all this way, rational, uh, effective communicators, thinkers, people that you kind of want to be like, and not, and not just, not want to be like, I guess. I'm saying I'm not effectively communicating right now, but that's my personal thing on that is I don't, without making it a religion or an ethos or, some kind of code to live by, I kind of feel like that it is not de facto, but definitely something I don't want. I feel like I'm representative of something. So I feel like this type of, the staircase is that those steps to take. I know they're part of the interest, the journey we take, but I also feel like it's kind of a overall part of our education to, and if you strive for those things, it makes you a better person and a better Mason. So getting back to it, let me pull up my thing again here. How important is it that we live our daily lives as Masons? Like, how important is it that we represent, for lack of a better word, these things we're our charges, these things we're supposed to do in our daily lives. And that's just,
I think exactly the point you're making is perfect, because you're basically are talking about things that build on what make us live our lives to be better Masons. I think that's perfect. I think it's awesome. And kind of like the points I've been making or we're trying to make, there's the things that are presented. They're not just steps. We don't step on them and leave them behind us. I think we step on them and take them with us. Those internalize inside of us. And we have to take each one of them on our journey with us, because the only way we can be whole is with all of them. But there is a building block. You do have to understand how to speak to convey a message. You have to understand how to write to give a message to future people. But again, it's been mentioned tonight, symbols. Symbols are important to us. We see them in astronomy. We see them in geometry. We see them in arithmetic. Everything we see is represented in a symbol in some way. So how do we convey those symbols? Through write or through communication. The staircase is a great way to represent things to someone who is learning. But when you come to understand them all, I think it's important to take them all and bring them all together. If you have an understanding of astronomy without rhetoric, I don't think you'll understand. If you have an understanding of grammar without logic, I don't think you'll understand. I think the great thing that we understand is if you bring these all together, that's what makes the person who can convey ideas and representations of what we strive to be as a whole and complete person. Again, it's hard to convey one method without the other. That's just my take on it. But yeah, you can break it down. I mean, we can look at, say, can you have grammar without, can you have astronomy without grammar? Can you have arithmetic without logic? I think they all fail together. I think they're built together, and I think they fail together. I really do.
So to kind of drive this home, or what kind of drives this home for me, you had an open-ended question there, is how important is it that we live our lives as Masons? If you take this one kind of key thing that we focused on here tonight, which is grammar, if we're gonna, we were exposed to that in the fellowcraft degree. So if you live your life as a Mason, I think you would take grammar very important, because if you don't, then if you're saying something to someone in the public or living your daily life, you could very easily not say it correctly or give the wrong impression, and sometimes maybe not even mean to do that. So if you live your life as a Mason, then you would take this seriously, so you could convey the proper message throughout your daily life.
I agree, Brother Harvey. That being said, it is 9 o'clock by my clock. With that, if you'll all raise a glass, we'll toast to the brethren who are no longer with us, whether they're no longer with us in person or no longer with us as they have gone to that great lodge above. Raise your glass. We meet as Masons, free and true. And when our work is done, the merry song and social glass is not unduly won. And only at our farewell pledge is pleasure mixed with pain. Happy to meet, sorry to part, and happy to meet again. Cheers. Cheers to you, brethren. I hope you had a great time on the call tonight.
Troy, do you have a hard?
Do I have what?
Is this a hard stop for everyone? Because I kind of had a tangent that I wanted to bring up.
No, it's not. We can go on just for a little bit further.
Please.
I try and truncate it to about an hour to make you wanting more. But go ahead, Brother Harvey.
Sure. So something that interested me when I saw the staircase, and it was laid out. I don't had the staircase picture. Maybe they could pop it back up on the screen. That was a great picture of the staircase. But the very first stair was smelling, and there were some jokes about smelling and tasting, and those are important not to be overlooked. And I think that that really is something that we should weigh in on. I don't know how freely I can speak on this Zoom call, but one thing that I've noticed at, let's say, at McClanahan Lodge, we're all ritualists on this meeting. We all enjoy doing ritual work. One thing that McClanahan had focused on was the preparation room and that first impression through degrees. And I was kind of wondering why we don't use smell as much, because we all know smell can invoke very strong memories, right? So I was just kind of wondering, if anyone on the call, maybe Ryan Smith or some other older people, know why we don't use that in our Blue Lodge degrees.
Red degrees.
That's a good question, but I think the only spot where smell comes in is in the entered apprentice degree in the Scottish Rite craft lodges down here in New Orleans. There is a prop that's used that creates a very distinct smell, and you just never forget it. Matter of fact, it kind of goes home with you in your clothes. But I for one cannot tell you why we don't use smell more.
So
I'd like to
go ahead, Chris.
I'd like to provide an opinion on this one. I think very strongly, smell is the first thing that I actually, I'll be very careful about this. Smell is the first thing that I remember about my entered apprentice degree. And it was in McClanahan, and it was for this reason. When I entered the lodge without having any light or any knowledge or anything given to me, the first thing I remember was walking into a building that had food provided. I was offered food, I was offered something, and the first thing that came to me was a meal. That meal was provided when I walked into the building because the first thing I did was smell food provided. It was inviting. It was something that invited me in to everyone that was there. The next thing I did was taste the food, and that was given to me. And so before even anything ever started, I had already seen those two things. right? Every time that we invite someone to come willfully, we usually have a meal, right? There's always a meal before lodge. Why is there always a meal before lodge? There's a smell, there's a taste. And before we can do anything else, we break bread together, we eat together. Now, yeah, a lot of Christian overtones, I understand that. But before we do anything else together, in those Christian overtones, yes, again, sorry, I think there are references in other religions as well. I am Christian, and I'll say that right now. I know heavily there's other religions that do the same, but as a Christian walking in and things on whatever, smell and taste were the first two things I ever had in lodge. And before anything else, there was that. It was a meal. It was a meal with the people and the brothers that I was welcomed into. And so for me, that was the first experience. The rest of it was built off that. And that's what started brothership and fellowship and people wanting to be together. Because how do you bring people together better than sharing a meal and sharing a way to invite someone into a place?
Brother Avery, I love the fact that you use the word brothership. I think you coined that one. That's pretty good. Brothership and fellowhood. That's great.
So Troy, my point to that was necessarily with the degree work, you look and all of the things, at least from what I understand, all of the things in the staircase had been either symbolically or physically or literally placed into the degree, with the exception of music, which from my understanding used to be there. So I guess my question was, did smell used to be involved in that? And if so, why have you gotten away from that?
You bet. Okay, so without giving away too much, Brother Mitchell, I'm going to go to you next, but I want to weigh on this one too. If the preparation room is properly adorned, there are substances in the preparation room that lend itself to smell and taste, interestingly enough. Brother Mitchell, go ahead.
I was just going to kind of go to that. Heath, you said something about music and how it used to be in the lodge. And when we discussed music, I guess it was last week, we asked why music's not in our ritual anymore. And the simple answer is just laziness and time. We've lost a lot of things in Masonry that were there for the almighty clock on the wall that's ticking. And people don't want to spend the time to make it that much more impressive. I have heard of other jurisdictions using incense in different parts of their degrees. I mean, Scottish Rite, we all know about. There's smells in that. I mean, things. And my point to that is, it's nothing, in my opinion, that can't be put back into our ritual. It's just, it's going to take someone to put it back into it.
All right, so I'm going to throw this out there. If you have a temple, should the temple have a certain smell? That's what we were talking about incense earlier, right?
Very, very good.
We're not talking about old man's farts either. No brother farts.
Depends on what they made for dinner, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
The scent of a candle, for example, and the light that it provides in the preparation room.
So should we get vanilla candles now?
Well, the wax smells, for example. I mean, the burning of the
incense. Incense goes back a long way.
Isn't the pot of incense one of our symbols? I think it is. I'm fairly certain.
Heath, you talked about.
I have never been prouder of. I'm very new to this, but when we did a full costume degree for someone and literally gave them everything that we were supposed to give them, I got given that as a gift. when I got my Master Mason's degree. And I can't explain how much that means to me after going to McClanahan and doing another full costume, full real degree. And I can only say, and I will mute myself after this, I believe every brother should get that. Every brother should get, because when you get that full costume, when you get that full degree, it reinforces to you this is timeless. This is what we have been doing for centuries. And if smell is part of that, and if music is part of that, we're depriving ourselves of something great. Because I think we all believe this fraternity is fantastic. And I'm not as smart as most of you guys. And
You're selling us way too smart. Trust me, we're not that smart.
When I came through the degree and I was given it the way I was given it, that degree sits with me every day when I walk out right now and deal with people who may have COVID-19. I believe that it is our absolute dictation that we go out and we show the rest of the world equilibrium. Now, if some of you know the Scottish Rite, you know that's a thing. I believe that if the music were there, if the sense were there, that would further reinstill, that's not even a word, it would let other people know, it would enforce upon the brother who just became a brother how sacred this is.
Brother Hicks, I totally agree. Just a reminder, brothers, if you do it right or if you do it wrong, you make an impression that lasts. Brother Mitchell, you do have a comment. I want to go to Brother Oliver first, and then back to you, Brother Mitchell. Brother Oliver, go ahead.
All right, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hello? So going back to grammar, I wanted to run this by y'all because we're kind of in the fellowcraft degree and going down the staircase. But I don't know how it is with y'all Louisiana boys, but here in Texas, it seems like a lot of guys don't take the time to learn the degree before putting it on, and don't take a lot of time to study how they're supposed to say something.
That's only in Texas, Brother Oliver. We do it perfectly here.
I got so many things to say about this. I want to hear it.
They say stuff in the ritual totally wrong, so it gives the candidate the wrong impression. And the whole thing is like they don't care about what they're doing. So the candidate's like, okay, well, if y'all don't care, why should I care? They just go to the house and we lose members.
Brother Oliver, I think that's a great point. I want to give you an example of that in my Masonic career. And thank you for weighing in. One of the brothers that was teaching me, right, used the name Pythagoras, right? So it's not Pythagoras, it was Pythagoras. But, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to tell him how you really say it. And then I realized he learned it by reading it. And when I realized he learned it by reading it, that I should never fault a brother from learning it that way. So even though they may mispronounce or mispronunciate the words, it depends on why they're doing it. If they're doing it because they're casual about it and they don't give a crap, then yes. If they don't care, then you shouldn't either. Right? Isn't that what they're teaching you? But again, as we've taught to others, you learn by not only doing, but also by seeing and watching others do it. So with that, brothers, we're at 9:16 here. I'm going to read the last scripture reading, and we'll go ahead and close. The scripture reading from tonight is from Psalm 30. It's a song for the dedication of a temple. How appropriate. The psalmist writes, I will exalt you, O Lord, for you lifted me out of the depths and did not let my enemies gloat over me. O Lord, my God, I called you for help, and you healed me. O Lord, you brought me up from the grave. You spared me from going down into the pit. Sing to the Lord, you saints of his. Praise his holy name. For his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may remain for a night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. And I don't think of anything else that would be more apropos for this evening's meeting. Brothers, I thank you all for tonight. I love you, I miss you, and we will see each other soon.
Good night.